With the release of Lex Imperialis, we've got access to an incredible new origin in Arbitrator. In this video, we're going to be looking at the Vigilant, which is the shotgun-based Arbitrator, which has some incredibly powerful abilities and talents that come with it. This will completely change how you play Soldier, and it will create a new, amazing and fun build catered around shotguns. A playstyle that previously we couldn't do because of the AP cost, but now with the AP buff and the added tools of the Arbitrator origin, the Vigilant shotgun build is probably one of the most enjoyable Soldier variants we've seen. Today I'm going to cover two different ways to build this. We're going to be looking at Overseer, because it's the new DLC tier 2 archetype, and Bounty Hunter, which actually synergizes incredibly well with it, allowing you to gain extra movement and armor penetration with a little bit more of attack economy. Alternatively, it is possible to build this as an Arc Militant, but that'll be something I say for the spreadsheet update later and won't be covered in this video. When we make our Arbitrator, we are going to pick the Vigilant subclass along with Fortress World and Soldier as our base archetype. We'll increase our ballistic score, our agility and our perception by 2, and the other areas of the starting class will be up to you to choose for roleplay purposes, but this is going to be the start of our build and where we go from here. The early gameplay of the tier 1 archetype is going to be focused around using your shotgun to line up your attacks and pick off targets. You're going to be doing high damage and high area damage, as well as being able to provide cover efficiency for your teammates. Once you pick up shields, you can block and survive more, but the early levels of Soldier, you're mostly going to be quite squishy and being reliant on dodge. So at this point in the game, you're still going to want to have your allies about. You're going to want to make sure enemies are packed up and using your very powerful area attacks to pick off enemies. Luckily, with all the added bonuses that we're seeing from the Arbiter's origin, there is a lot for us to work with, and it's even more efficient than burst builds were pre-patched. Having the ability to do 2 attacks for single AP is very strong. Enemies will struggle to be able to resist your attacks, as you'll be having very high damage and very high armor penetration at very close distances, and follow-up attacks will do increased damage to enemies. You'll also be able to parry enemy attacks with your ranged weapon, which will make you very hard for enemies to deal with, and once you do have that block, you have even higher chances of being able to revenge attack these incoming attacks. With enough bullets for everyone, your second attack in the round, when fired against different groups of enemies, will deal increased damage. And kills, as soon as you get 2, Swift Slaughter will be up a lot more quickly to allow you to use your Revelant Slaughter ability. Any enemies that might be hard to get to or allies might be surrounding them, that's when you're going to want to use a Double Slug. Alternatively, when we go through the build levels, you can take Grizzly Adjudication earlier, but I preferred Double Slug when I was running through with what I had on the testing build. The upgrades for our Heroic Action makes the Soldier Heroic Action a lot more usable. Before the update, I actually never used this, but getting both upgrades 1 and 4 are going to be very helpful, and you'll have a big damage spike from concentrated fire. Just be careful when lining up your shots not to hit your allies. The main ability of this is Swift Justice. Enemies attacked by the Arbitrator and their familiar suffer the Swift Justice effect until the start of the Arbitrator's next turn. The Arbitrator's shotgun deals an additional 40 plus coercion divided by 5 damage. So this gives us a big reason to go into coercion and to buff this up, and there are quite a few ways that we can now do this, especially with new buffed companions and items that come in the DLC. Another ability that comes to the Soldier via the Arbiter's origin is Fulminating Shot. This shotgun attack reduces the dodge, parry and block of targets in the area effect by the attacker's coercion minus the target's willpower for 1 round, regardless of whether or not they were hit. This is an excellent way to cripple enemies in a wide area, and it is another way to use your shotgun. Some of the other talents that you get added will increase the way that you play this, and we'll go over that as we go through the level up. You get the possibility of 2 new abilities in Grizzly Education and Double Slug, but these get picked at different points in the build, and it will work very similar to the Companions build that comes pre-built up to level 24, but Solomon will be covered in his own video. So starting as a soldier with this origin, we start off with the ability Run and Gun. This will allow us to increase our attack economy. The skills that we're going to want to focus on are Demolition, because of the skill Demolition Engineer that we'll take later on, and Coercion, which will work with our base ability. So at rank 2, we're going to pick up Demolition first, because it's going to be important to start building this up. Rank 3, we get the usual Revel in Slaughter ability. We get access to Firearm Mastery, which is one of the soldier's main abilities. This will allow us to get 2-3 attacks with our shotgun, as well as some very powerful upgrades that we'll see as we go through. The first skill that we pick up at level 4 is Point Blank. This is going to be because we get extra armor penetration and we ignore deflection when enemies are close. We will continue by upgrading our ballistic skill, and then we'll pick up Demolition Engineer, which will allow us to use our demolition skill instead of using our intelligence for increased damage for areas. We will then continue increasing our ballistic skill, and we'll pick up Double Slug, which is one of the new attacking abilities. The shotgun attack allows the Arbitrator to make 2 single target shots against the target. This is mostly going to be for when you're trying to pick off a certain target, but it will allow a double single shot using the buffs of the shotgun, though we won't get any of the area bonuses. We'll pick up Perception at level 7, and then one of the new powerful abilities from the Arbitrator, which is Lawful Intervention. This allows us to parry using our guns, and we can make attacks of opportunity with shotguns when we are in melee range. This is an incredibly powerful ability that opens up the build a lot. Rank 8, we take Tenderize to increase our damage on follow-up attacks, as well as more demolition. And then we take the upgrade Firearm Mastery 1, which will give us an extra 4 MP, and our movement will not be ended by attacks. And there is gear later that will play in with this, which will make it very useful. Rank 10, we take Enough Bullets for Everyone, so our second attacks deal more damage. We'll then take Perception. We'll get the ability Concentrated Fire, which will increase our damage, along with increasing our coercion. At rank 12, we take Agility and Never Stop Believing. This will tie in with our Fortress world. Swift Slaughter will be picked up at rank 13, along with Familiar Kickback, which will help us build extra additional attacks on extra turns as we build stacks of Never Stop Shooting. Shotgun Mastery is going to be taken at rank 14, which will allow us to equip a shield. Later on, we will be taking a second shotgun, but that will come when we get 2-weapon fighting. Lastly, we will take Firearm Mastery 4, which is until the end of the soldier's turn, each of the area attacks deals additional damage equal to the number of attacked targets. Tier 2 is when things are going to get really interesting for this build. Looking at it, you might think that the pets aren't adding all that much to the shotgun build, but listen closely, dear viewer. It in fact is adding a lot to it. When you pick up the Cybermassive proficiency, until you get some of the upgrades and gears for it, which you pick up on Dark Goddess and as soon as you get into Act 2, pets might seem a little bit underwhelming. But then you look at the first ability that we're going to pick up as we go through this, which is Strategic Adaptation. Strategic Adaptation has the wonderful ability of increasing your damage and refunding your attack and AP, meaning it increases your attack economy. As we go through in the Tier 2 and Act 2, we're going to be picking up abilities to further enhance our pet's movement, the damage of it. We're going to pick up the ability to go either dual weapon combat. Alternatively, if you'd like, you can pick up Instant Retribution if you'd like to be a more shield-based shotgun user. However, I preferred going with double shotguns and being the main primary mobile damage dealer. Later abilities will further upgrade our pet, as well as giving us the ability to make additional attacks outside of our turn when enemies are forced to make willpower checks. There is currently a bug that we will go into the Tier 3, which can allow us to sometimes attack during the loading phase, or the positioning phase as you might call it. However, that hopefully will be patched on the live version. We'll pick up some more of our Never Stop Shooting abilities in Combat Active and Spare Magazine. This will make our life playing just a little bit easier in Tier 2, but you'll start seeing the build coming together, and we'll start getting some very powerful new items from DLC 1, DLC 2, and as we explore the map. So actually, let's get in there and look at what the build is and what we pick. When we move into Tier 2 and we take Cybermastiff proficiency, we gain the Cybermastiff's ability to apprehend. This will deal damage to the enemy and allow the Cybermastiff to make attacks of opportunity when we attack this target, further increasing damage. The first ability we're going to take is Strategic Adaptation, which, as I had said before, will, when our companion is over 50% wounds, we do more damage based on our own perception, which is ideal for this build, and we'll refund the AP and attack action if we kill an enemy with the following attack. So you want to save this for something you know that's going to kill. The first ability we take at rank 3 going into tier 2 is Rite of Calibration. This lowers the cost of our first pet ability by 1. At rank 4 we get Overcharge, which is going to be the Archetype special ability. Rank 5 we're going to continue to increase our ballistic skill and also increase our AP. Rank 6 we get Perimeter Defense. One of the other abilities that we get is called Protect, which brings your pet to you and it attacks enemies that come into melee range. Perimeter Defense removes some of the limitation of MP by allowing your creature to move double distance. Now, why we might want him to be able to move forward? Well, that's where the power of the pet comes from, in Advanced Tracking, in the next ability that we're going to take. Advanced Tracking will increase our pet's damage by each cell it traverses in the round until our next turn. It will be based on the familiar's weapon score bonus divided by 2. The more squares you move, the more damage you do. This is where the majority of your damage for your pets is going to come from, along with its gear. We continue to increase our demolition skill, but then we pick up at rank 8 Armor Piercing. This will allow our successful attacks to reduce the enemy's armor by our perception bonus for the rest of the round. An incredibly powerful ability to have on your offensive class. Rank 9 will start increasing our agility because it's good, because that will also increase our damage as well as our dodge thanks to Demolitions Expert, but we'll also pick up dual weapon combat, which will increase our attack economy. At rank 10 we pick up Chain More, which means additional attacks from our pet will increase its strength and keep doing damage. We'll increase more agility and demolition at rank 11. Rank 12, we take upgrade 2 to Overcharge. This will increase our familiar's characteristics by 30, and it will also allow us to use those free abilities that we get from tier 2 to use more. Though when I pick a heroic action, I normally go for the Soldier. Rank 13 is when we get Law and Order, which means the Arbiter does more damage when attacking on others' turns. This means like Bring It Down, Metabolic Overcharge, or Finest Hour. This is a huge upgrade, and it can also force opponents to make willpower resistant tests or become immobilized. This means attacks we take in extra turns stop packs of enemies from moving, an incredibly good routing ability. We also take Public Sensing, which is whenever an enemy adjacent to the Arbitrator fails a willpower test for the first time in a round, that enemy attack provokes an attack of opportunity from our Arbitrator. Currently on the testing patch, when we attack, we can't use Law and Order to get an extra attack from Public Sensing, but all other forms of willpower checks that are caused when we are not attacking will allow us to get an attack. This means that willpower checks from other pets or from our companions, or even stuff like High Spinner's Armor, will give us a free attack during enemy turns. Rank 14, we increase our agility coercion, and then we take the Bite ability. The Bite ability adds another attack to our Cybermastiff. This attack will deal double rending damage, and it will cause a toughness effect that can knock our enemies prone. Again, more controlling abilities. This is an incredibly strong battlefield controlling class. Rank 16 will take Resistance is Futile. This will decrease enemy strength and weapon score. We'll also take Combat Addict from Never Stop Shooting to get a passive buff. We'll then pick up Perception and Coercion at rank 17. Rank 18, we take Rite of Solar Nourishment, which gives our pets some increased stats. Rank 19, we'll take Spare Magazine, because you're going to notice you start reloading a lot, and this will help build up stacks of Never Stop Shooting, as we didn't take Rapid Reload in Tier 1. Lastly, we'll take the Upgrade Charge 3 to our Overcharge ability. This will, when we are attacked, will actually gain Deflection until the end of combat. Something that can be quite useful, but I've never found myself be quite defensive, but that will bring a close to what we're picking up in Tier 2. Tier 3 is when most builds just become absolutely OP and it just dominates the battlefield. We increase our attack economy quite a bit here. We get 4 more AP as per default. Some of the really powerful items are then found in Acts 3 to 5, which will just make us even stronger. We also heavily go in to pick up our remaining damage talents as well as our pet damage talents. You're going to also pick up Entrench. So in those small scenarios where you can't reach enemy and you're out of MP, but you still have AP left, you can bank that AP for the next time you use running gun, so you've got more AP to work with on bonus turns. You also pick up Degraded Defense, which is the biggest damage rider in the game for Soldier, so it is very vital to take. We also take Vital Points, which will increase some of our critical damage, along with Extermination, which increases our damage of our attacks and critical velocity. We also pick up the other Arbitrator's ability that we didn't get. At this point, you are just the battlefield controlling king. If you're not one turning because of you've been given a finest hour, you will be by the time you get the boot upgrades from the Siren counter, which will cause your area attacks to give you +4 MP. This build is online from Act 1, and this is the point where it just trivializes the game. When I was first designing this, one of the developers asked me why I wouldn't just make a heavy weapons build. This is why. This is just so much better at clearing it. Yes, it's not going to do the top end damage of an improved heavy bolter, but it doesn't need to because there's nothing in the game that needs that level of damage, whereas this will more reliably clear the battlefield. So let's look at what we're taking at these levels. So let's talk about Tier 3. So as we go into the Exemplar ranks in Act 3, we're going to take Eager for Battle, which is going to increase our attack economy. Camaraderie is an incredibly useful upgrade to our soldier here because our pet's always going to be standing next to us. We're always going to be getting a minimum buff from this. We're going to further increase our demolitions, and we're going to take stuff that increases our resolve. The reason I take resolve increases is Metabolic Overcharge can be used with certain items that when you gain momentum, you gain temporary health. This can actually balance out the damage that you're taking from Metabolic Overcharge to the point you take no negative damage, so you can easily fly around the battlefield clearing enemies. We'll continue to increase our ballistic skill, and we'll pick up Mob Justice. This will give us extra damage based on our coercion, so another reason why we do it, and it does it in the AoE of up to 3 cells. Rank 4 we take Entrench, so this way if we have any additional AP when we run out of MP, we'll be able to save that for our later turns. Degraded Defense is a huge damage boost for us, and Victimize is something that we take that increases damage of our companions' attacks based on our fellowship. Don't worry, we will be buffing this even though we haven't invested in it. We take Ballistic Skill and Fired Up. Fired Up gives us extra damage increase every time we attack, and because of our high attack economy, this is very useful. At rank 7 we take Run. This will remove abilities on our allies that have been, well, our pets that have been immobilized, prone, or stunned. So this will allow us to use our Side Mastiff. It will also allow it to move through enemies without taking opportunity, as well as applying bleeding. If you are running any executioners, they will love that bleeding's already there. We further increase our agility, and then we take Battle Mode Terror. This will allow our attacks to slowly build up its key characteristics, which is weapon score and strength. We then take Prepared Prosecution, which allows us to start next to enemies. At the start of combat, if you start next to an enemy with either High Spinner's Armor or Fiend of Eobo 6 with our previously taken talents, you will immediately fire your shotgun. There is currently a glitch where you can just click around it before the pre-start of the phase and just blast down all the enemies, but I have been told that will be patched. Rank 9, we continue to increase our coercion, and we take up Vital Points to increase our critical damage further. Rank 10, we get a nice AP increase, as well as Rack and Ruin and more coercion at rank 11. Rank 12, I take Integrity, but you could easily take other talents like Fortress here, and then we start to go into our Medicaid because we've maxed out our Demolition and Coercion. Rank 13, we take Autonomous Medikit to increase our pets' wounds. And rank 14, we take more Perception and Medicaid. Rank 15, we get Extermination, so we increase our base damage by 1 with each attack, as well as Rapid Reload, because you start burning through your shotgun very quickly because of how many shots you're taking on both of them. At rank 16, we take Side by Side, which will allow us to automatically re-roll a failed dodge, which with our high dodge we're likely to succeed if we failed it the first time. Rank 17, you can take Fortress or Unfaltering Fire, whichever you prefer of your playstyle. Your crit chance is obviously going to be really high, so you might not need that, and Fortress, you tend to not be in cover very much with how mobile this build is. We also take Solid Projectile Weapon Expert to give us 2 minimum damage whilst we're in combat. It's just a nice little addition. Grisly Adjudication, when we pick this up, the shotgun attacks have additional arm penetration and it adds bleeding. This is going to be based on our shotgun armor penetration, so it is quite useful. Rank 19, we take critical velocity to increase our critical hit chance and damage based on our dodge, as well as Pillar of the Law. This means our heroic action will increase our coercion and our block, though we probably won't be using shields unless you have gone for the instant retribution route. This will be based on our willpower, but again, this will be buffed by allies. And at rank 20, we get that last bit of AP increase, thus completing our level 55 build, which you will do quite early on into Act 4. When discussing gearing, the version that I played on didn't have all the item descriptions in, so a lot of the new stuff actually had no text, so I couldn't really use it or test it given the time frame. However, for the end stuff I've used, I've actually ended up using some of the high spinner stuff. Like I said, the high spinner's armor, when enemies come to attack us, because we can also parry them, we can also revenge attack them as they come in with our shotgun, so you tend to blast enemies during their turns. So it is a very nice armor to have. I ended up adding on Lingering Whisper from Cabela's quest, so we do more damage to enemies that are below 50% health. We end up destroying things quite quickly. One of the nice little things we get in the Act 2 of the DLC is something called the dog tag, which whenever we kill someone in the round, we get plus 10 to all characteristics, which is quite useful early on, but something more optimal could be later in some of the items that I haven't been able to read. I take Bead of Might, so we get an extra 30% damage, because by the time we're at 8 AP, that's just optimal. I was using demolition instructions because it ups our demolition and increases our area attacks, which has been very nice. Late game, Inevitable Demise obviously just doubles our critical damage, so it's very, very effective. I was using the Cloak of Hatred, so every time we kill enemies, we get 3% damage boost. And from the Sire in Act 4 from DLC 1, after the wearer makes an area attack, they gain 4 MP and continue their movement. This has been incredibly powerful for making this just the ultimate battlefield clearer, and then any AP you have left, you just unload to the boss, and tear it down. One of the new guns that we get in here is the scoped shotgun, which is very high damage, with not too bad armor pen, but we do get very high armor pen increases. Yeah, it's very good. We can do 35-40 with this, and we can do a lot of damage. Alternatively, we do have the double impact shotgun, so pick what you do want to go into your primary slot, but it can always go into your secondary slot. But yeah, the Doom double barrel shotgun, very good option for this. So yeah, the double barrel shotgun, but you end up reloading this one a lot, but it is a very, very solid choice. You can use it in the primary or secondary, whichever you prefer to have it, though I was enjoying the gimmick of the scope shotgun, but the double barrel shotgun is the better damage. In part 2 of the DLC, we actually get an item called Crescendo, which is when the wielder parries an attack or hits 2 or more enemies with the shotgun's ranged area attack, they gain 1 attack until the start of their next turn. It does not stack. Yeah, so you open your first shot with Crescendo, so you get free attack economy, and then you can just start blasting. And with dual weapon combat, you'll be getting even more attack economy. Some of the 2 new shotguns that we did pick up was Hailstorm and the Final Chord. Hailstorm, the shotgun has increased area attack. This attack still at 150% damage, but their hit chances decreased by 50%, so it can be quite hit or miss. And the Final Chord, which is when shooting the last shell from the shotgun, the shot ignores target's armor. That target must then make an agility resistant test or become mobilized. Obviously, with our abilities, they weren't as useful as they could have been. But like I said, these might not be the optimal items because a lot of them I couldn't read going through. However, you want to be taking anything as you go through that increases your demolitions, anything that increases your area damage, anything that increases your MP, as well as your hit chance and critical hit chance early on. I will probably live stream this so you can see how I go through it, but that's going to be the main itemization for the core build. Alternative as a little bonus build, if you don't want to go the pet route, we do have the bounty hunter route. The tier 1 works almost exactly the same as what we did previously, but things change in the tier 2. In the bounty hunter area, we take Claim the Bounty and Call the Bold. These are some good damage increases and extra attack economy. We still go down the dual weapon route as well as picking up all the other Arbitrator talents that we did before. We do, however, get Ensnare the Prey, which can be quite useful for stopping enemies move in on you, and it can just be very useful, along with getting some additional attack economy against enemies that have been stunned or slowed or immobilized. So this refunds a lot of AP and gets extra attacks, and if you have a second bounty hunter, you can loop quite nicely to reset all your abilities. In the tier 3, we get some other nice little things in here, such as Pierce the Ruin. Again, we pick up Entrench. We also take Hot on the Trail. So if you get stuck, instead of entrenching, you can use Hot on the Trail to get an extra turn. It depends on what you're planning to go for or how many enemies are left. And you can also get Expert Finesse. Expert Finesse, I struggled to find a use for it. But this build is more designed around if you don't want to use pets, and it's actually a very decent and reliable bounty hunter shotgun build. You can actually do something similar with Argenta because she is massively buffed thanks to the 1 AP. So this is just a nice little alternative that will end up on the sheet once this is updated. I'm not going to go as in much detail because I don't really have the video footage to show you like I did previously with the Overseer, but this is a nice alternative if you didn't want to go the pet route. I hope you find this informative, and I hope you've enjoyed watching it. I've got more coming for all the companions, and once all the companions are done, I'm going to start updating older builds that I did for previous patches, as well as some new ones with some of the new little toys. So do look forward. Let me know what you think of this build and what you're looking forward to seeing and what build you'd like to see in the future. Like I said, full updates will be coming to the sheet once we have finished all the companions. Till then, I'll see you around, and if you see me streaming on either Twitch or YouTube, I'll normally announce it on the community tab, so do come say hi, and if you have any questions, come let me know. I hope you can enjoy the DLC, because it's been absolutely fantastic so far.